Production by Liang Gu, author of Manli, Yin. After dinner, I sorted out the books on the desk. I felt a little tired. The timepiece on the wall already pointed to 10 o'clock. I wanted to go to bed early tonight. Come on. The autumn wind suddenly picked up outside the window, blowing the fallen leaves piled up in front of the steps. The cold air suddenly made me feel that my clothes were thin. The wind was blowing more and more, and I couldn't bear to listen to it. I was about to turn off the light and dream, when old Nya, the doorman, came in and said, "We have guests." I hurriedly put on my jacket and walked into the yard. Under the dim light, I saw Tong Fun, whom I had not seen for a long time, coming in with a leather bag in hand. This was an unexpected gathering that made me forget the fatigue of the day. We sat on the wicker chairs and talked about our memories after we said goodbye and our recent living conditions. We also talked about many friends, and finally we talked about Mary. Manli is an innocent and emotional girl. Her beautiful eyes always shine with pure light, and she most admires heroes who sacrifice their lives for their country. At the end of summer this year, after we broke up from Huangputan, Yizhen didn't get any news from her. Only a photo of our parting was always floating in my mind. It was dusk at that time, and there were many young men and women wandering arm in arm on Huangpu Beach, chatting secretly. The sky was glittering with intoxicating red clouds, and the sea waves shot out thousands of silver waves. The winding tram drove from the main road to Huangpu Beach and stopped. Many people got off one after another, and Manli and I also squeezed out of the tram through the crowd. There were so many cars on the road that it was difficult to stop for a moment. We walked to the green grass of Huangpu Beach and wandered slowly. Later we walked to a horse cherry tree, and Manli was leaning against the tree. I stood opposite her. Although Manli's letter is as elusive as a phantom cloud, it contains the deepest sorrowful feelings in the world, which shocked my heart, but if I want to continue reading her diary, I have to try to stay calm. Since August 4th, I have been reading newspapers in the newspaper reading room after class. I feel that the national affairs are getting worse day by day, and my international status is getting lower and lower day by day. What about internal affairs? What's even more unspeakable is that after years of fighting, misery everywhere, seeing Liang's family collapsed. What's a good place to stay? Besides, the garden in my hometown had been destroyed by soldiers and bandits long ago, leaving only some ruins and tiles. Alas! I only hate those who are weak and have ambitions to save the country, but they are just ambitions. When will it become a reality? Zheng went to ask Pinky and he also agreed. The apricot farmer came again this afternoon, and he said to me sincerely, "Manli, don't be hesitant. In addition to overthrowing the old forces and cultivating new forces, is there any other way for China to hope for the prosperity of the country? And the time has come. You see, the world is no longer as dead as it used to be. The party and army's northern expedition is overwhelming. How can we not take advantage of the opportunity to pursue our long-cherished wish?" After hearing what the apricot farmer said, I was very excited and wanted to join a certain party immediately and work hard to cooperate with them. Later, the apricot farmer left. I wrote a letter to Wanrua, telling him that I had decided to join a certain party and asked him to introduce it to me. After writing the letter, I quietly thought about the critical situation in China. Unless many people with lofty ideals come forward to shoulder this difficulty, the future of the country will be unimaginable. On this day, my whole life is soaked in blood. I officially joined a certain party on August 7th. Of course, when I filled out the application form, I felt really proud. I am just a timid girl, but now I am shouldering such a heavy revolutionary cause. There is really no way to describe my personal joy. I seem to have discovered something. I feel that no matter how bad the national affairs are, as long as there are truly patriotic people who are willing to sacrifice everything for the country, then the country will never fall. And it can also produce vigorous new life. I am so happy when I think of this. She seemed to be disapproving of my joining a certain party. Her letter said, "Manli. After receiving your letter and knowing that you have joined a certain party, I naturally believe that you joined because of patriotism. You are different from ordinary speculators nowadays. But Manli, you really understand the party. Content? Do you really have unquestioning belief in their doctrine? If you want revolution, do you really have a goal that you think must be revolutionized? Mary, I think fideism and religious belief are the same spirit. Jesus commanded his disciples, you should jump into the river immediately. To save the drowned woman and baby, can you move forward without hesitation or doubt? Manli, I believe your heart is pure, but your passion often dominates your reason. In fact, you have already joined. I shouldn't have asked you so many questions, but we are very good friends. Now that I think of this, I can't remain silent. Manli, please forgive me. Tong Fen's letter touched me very much. I couldn't help but think back to my haste to join the party. I really couldn't think about the issues she mentioned in detail. I just sprayed my passion aimlessly into the world. Alas! I am in a very bad mood today and I regret it a bit. On August 22nd, I have officially joined the party department. Everything seems to be in chaos, and there seems to be no system for everything. This may be because I first joined the cooperation, and there are many things that we don't know where the system is. It's not that it doesn't have a system itself. But that's enough for me to hesitate. They assigned me to be the secretary of the women's department, and I always came to the office at the legal time every day. The director of our women's department is really a strange woman. She is very tall, often wears a brown military uniform, has her hair cut like a man's, and walks like a man. The waist can be straight and the posture is good. It is a pity that a pair of feet that have been tortured and liberated cannot support the tallness of the upper body. Although the leather shoes are made very wide and can fit comfortably, they are still unavoidable when walking. Naughty look. This time it becomes three different things. What is even more noticeable is her deep voice. She really likes to speak. Probably the most important business we do in the office is listening to her speech. Really, her eloquence is not bad. What is particularly touching is the sentence, "Our comrades are so affectionate." But sometimes I feel uncomfortable listening to it. This may be my prejudice. I am not used to being a revolutionary party and have not been well trained. I lack her complacent heroic spirit. I always feel that the revolution I want is not like this. The current situation in China is extremely complicated, and it is harder to clean up than a mess. We now have to do the revolutionary work of sorting out and sorting things out. According to my ideal, every revolutionary must at least do the work of subduing heaven. But that's not the case here. The minister likes to talk eloquently, and the other clerks who write love letters still write love letters, and those who talk about love still talk about love. Everyone seems to have the world settled in the future, and they will all be revolutionary heroes in the future. It's all about what one wants, and the attitude is arrogant and arrogant. Can this be said to be the revolution that the whole people hopes for? Well, I'm so confused. September 3rd. I've been really depressed lately. I can't even bring myself to be interested. Everything here is disappointing me. Yesterday, the apricot farmer told me that Yunquan was going to the United States. This really surprised me. Her family was very poor. How come she suddenly had money to go to the United States in half a year? Later, when I asked Xing Nong, I found out that she worked as the secretary of the women's department for half a year and made a fortune of 6,000 to 7,000 yuan. This statement really shocked me. A small secretary made a fortune of 6,000 to 7,000 yuan in half a year. If he were the Secretary General of the Provincial Party Department, wouldn't he be able to make hundreds of thousands? This skill is really better than the previous bureaucrats. But they are all people with lofty ideals who seek happiness for the people. Could it be that they are mining bottomless mines themselves? Oh, it's incredible. People here also want money. Warlords eat opium, and there are always grand events of smoking clouds and smoke here. Oh, decay. Everything is rotten. September 10th is really incredible. There are all kinds of different factions in one party department. One day yesterday, I met 3 people who tried to help me with the matter of electing the chairman of the committee. They all call me comrade, but each of the 3 sides has its own opinions, and they are 3 absolutely different opinions. This really makes me embarrassed. Whose comrade am I? Let's be honest. They all want to expand their power, but which one is selfless for the public good? And it is usually young people with blind enthusiasm who control everything, without any training in advance, alas. I can't bear to say it, something really perverse and disregarding public opinion. Xiao Zhu came over very early this morning and told me that Hong Qing, who was sent to County C as the county governor, was there to extort people's money, act arbitrarily and make a lot of jokes, which was really painful to hear. Originally, these people had no knowledge at all, and their purpose of joining the party was only to get rich and get promoted. Once you have power, how can you avoid abuse? What the apricot farmer said is really good. He said, our revolution should have steps. The first step is to be fully prepared. Whether it is destruction or construction, we must have sufficient talent preparations. Only in the second step can we carry out the work of destruction. After destruction, we need construction talents to clean up the mess immediately. But what is happening now is completely wrong. There are no talents for destruction, and there are even less talents for construction. Most of the elements are speculating for their own food and clothing, so after laying down a territory, no one is doing new construction. What a bleak future this is. Although the earth wall is not good, if you break the earth wall and don't repair the brick wall, it is better to keep the earth wall and become a fragment. Well, the more we talk today, the more pessimistic we become. Does China only have this silent destiny? There was a big trend here today, September 15th. This is called shame. Wei Chun was shot. Because he embezzled 20,000 yuan of public funds, he was reported by Xinghu, but Xinghu made a fortune of 500,000 yuan at the same time. It is said that Wei Chun is quite powerful in the committee. He was leaning to the right. He was given 500,000 yuan. Later, who discovered that Wei Chun had embezzled public funds? He reported it to the headquarters and shot. I really want to leave here. I went to the apricot farmer in the afternoon and talked about it. He was also very discouraged. Alas! I really don't know what to do about this corrupt national situation. On September 17th, everything in the party became more chaotic in the past few days. I had already fallen asleep last night. Suddenly received a letter from Xing Nong. He said, "The situation has been very bad these days. The commander of the army suffered a military defeat, and there was great internal strife. The biggest reason is that the ordinary people employed. However, the ability to separate and control is very strong, which makes some officers unwilling to rebel against them. If they want to rebel, a certain army commander knows that it is impossible, and he has decided not to do it, so we have to prepare to walk. Please pay attention." Alas! Walk. I have wanted to walk for a long time. This place is getting more and more disappointing, and if I go on any further I will go crazy with excitement. On September 22nd, all the important characters in the branch's party headquarters were gone. Those who have the ability have become rich, but we are in fear of running out of food. Last night, we only had 2 yuan left after checking the leather box. The apricot farmer came in the morning, and we ate the meal that cost 50 cents a table. After the meal, we all sat in the room, frowning at each other. Xiao Zhu suddenly ran over. She was still in high spirits, chatting and laughing as soon as she walked in. We told her about our embarrassment, and she said, "What are you worried about? I will give you 20 yuan here first, and we will worry about it after you use it." The apricot farmer was relieved. So we don't have to worry about food for the time being. Everyone sat and chatted. Xiao Zhu smiled at us and said, "Let me tell you some interesting news. Do you know Lanfen? She is really good. She actually found out all the secrets of the enemy party. Naturally, Lanfen is that she has a pretty face, and Zhang from the enemy party is actually obsessed with her." I was only focused on pleasing Lanfen and had forgotten other things. What happened to them was so interesting. I heard Lanfen tell us yesterday and it really made me laugh to death. Wasn't the day before yesterday a week? In the morning, Zhang went to Lanfen's place and invited Lanfen to have lunch, and Lanfen agreed. Zhang called a car and went to Dekhang Hotel with Lanfen. When they got there, it was still early, so they chose a room to sit down, and Zhang expressed his kindness to Lanfen and told her his love for Lanfen. Lanfen smiled and said, "I really hope we can be friends. But I'm afraid it can't be true. You can't be honest with me." After listening to Lanfen's words, Zhang looked at that beautiful face again. Really, he wanted to dig out his heart and give it to her, so he said, "Lanfen, as long as you really love me, I can sacrifice anything for you. If my death is beneficial to you, I can also do it." Lanfen held his hand and said, "I really appreciate your sincerity in treating me, but I am a bit weird. Unless you tell me something that others cannot hear, then I will believe it." Zhang said, "I can tell you anything, but now I recite my life to you, Lanfen. Then you believe me." Lanfen said, "Can you tell me all the secrets of your group? I shouldn't have made such a request, but I just asked for mutual understanding. What should not be concealed?" Zhang was almost in a daze. He never thought that Lanfen had other intentions, so he told Lanfen his personal decision and various ways to deal with the enemy to express his love. "This is so funny," Xiao Zhu said so happily. But after listening to it, I was deeply moved. How many secrets in the world are caused by emotions? On October 1st, in the chaotic city of N, we couldn't figure out why we stayed together. Today, I returned to Shanghai. I got here early in the morning train, had some snacks, and then went to see my friends. Walking to Huangpu Beach, I couldn't help but think of the time I said goodbye to Sister Shaw a few months ago. How excited I was at that time. How conceited. Well, who would have thought the result would be so embarrassing? Now I have realized that it is not easy to succeed in career. Even the path to start a career is not easy to choose. Back to Shanghai, but my hope is completely buried in the deep soil of N City. Who knows when it will sprout and flourish? Who could have predicted it? On October 5th, I suddenly suffered from neurasthenia. Heart palpitations, chest tightness, and overwhelming anger. I moved to the hospital today. This hospital is outside the city, the air is very good, and the surroundings are very quiet. I slept on a soft wire bed and felt very comfortable. But my illness is mental, and the more comfortable I am, the better I can be prepared. My mind became more and more complicated. When I thought about the past 2 or 3 months, it felt like a poisonous snake was biting my heart. There are scars everywhere. Well, before I joined the revolutionary work, in my heart, among the thousands of thorns, there was still a bright violet flower blooming. Give me hope for a bright future. Now, the violets have withered, leaving only stinging thorns. How can I not move forward? On October 7th and 2 nights, I am only troubled by the scars of the past. I hate the human world. If I have the ability, I must completely annihilate it. But sometimes I don't think so. God never arranges it this way. There are big roads and small roads in the world, there are accessible roads and there are impassable roads. I have not traveled all of them. Why do I despair? I don't think I've ever put any effort into exploring the path. Just follow them with your eyes closed, failure. Isn't it your own fault? Strangely, when I turned my resentful thoughts into regrets, the wilted violet in my heart seemed to be sprouting again, but I no longer dared to destroy it at will. After I recovered from my illness, I have to work hard to find a feasible path and seek the light. The scars caused by closing your eyes before will remain forever. Manli looked at the rolling river and said, "Sister Shaw, I'm going to leave within a day or 2, sister. What do you think of my trip?" Manli seemed very touched by my words at that time. She held my hand tightly and said, "Sister, I hope you believe me. I love our country. My ultimate goal is to sacrifice everything for the justice of the country. I know that Manli has decided to leave." I couldn't help but feel the sadness of parting, but I didn't want her to know my cowardice, so I had to hold back my tears and cheer up and said, "I couldn't help but be stunned after hearing this shocking news." Tongfen continued, "Manli has a long letter and asked me to forward it to you. You can understand it naturally after seeing it." As she said that, she opened the small leather case, and sure enough she took out a very thick letter and handed it to me. I couldn't help my heartbeat at this moment. I didn't know what news it contained, so I opened it hurriedly and read. "Shaw sister." I kept silent. I don't want to shed my tears of grief and anger to the world, but sister, in front of you, I should not hide it under any circumstances. Sister, please remember. I leaned on the railing of the boat and watched the emerald green river running. My heart was full of hope. Sister. At this time, I was very excited, and at the same time very proud. I thought that in this silent and desolate desert like China, I had finally found a source of rich grass and water. No matter how miserable the times are, I will work hard to cultivate the land so that the green grass will spread throughout the desert and the water will moisten the entire desert. Finally, all of China will become green and lush fertile soil. What a bright future this is, and what a wonderful future it is. What a great job. Sister. I have always fantasized like this. No matter how many times the sand gull flutters its wings, I will never be disturbed by it to interrupt my thoughts. Sister, you naturally believe that I have always had this kind of fantasy. However, who knew that fantasy is always in flux? It will never be possible to build a foundation on the river, sister. I'm so sad and angry. I'm so ashamed. I'm sleeping in the hospital ward now. Sister. I regret that I didn't listen to your advice. I didn't be careful again and again, only rushed forward blindly with childish and fanatical patriotism. As a result, I was like a ship that lost its compass needle, lost in the rough seas. Floating in the endless sea, finally I hit a rock. Sister. Now I am drowning in the bottom of despair. Not only can I not find fertile grass and water, but I also no longer have the courage to hope to discover the light. Sister. I really can't bear to elaborate. I tried my best to bring my shame and anger to Jiuquan in silence. Why should I whisper to the miserable world? But sister, in the end I doubted that my failure was not my own lack of skill, so who should I blame? How could I not repent to the world before I die? At least I should confess to my dear sister. Sister. Please read these pages of my diary. There are the remnants of my hesitating on the wrong road. At the same time, they are also the remnants of the hesitation of ordinary young people who have no independent opinions. This is my candid confession. This is the only scripture by which I can repent. At that time we said goodbye to each other, and it has been several months now. I didn't know about Manli's success or failure, so I asked Tongfen about Manli's current situation, and Tongfen frowned and sighed. What a pity. What a pity. Manli only took one wrong step and ended up in total failure. She is now living in the hospital and her life is very bleak. I went to see her when I left Shanghai. Alas. So haggard. Manli. I hope you will not only have the courage, but also be cautious. Manli's diary was finished, and my nervous heartstrings slowly returned to their original state. It was late at night. The autumn fans were swaying in the wind, and the withered vines in front of the window made the sound even louder. Tongfen also felt very tired. We fell asleep separately without saying anything. I desperately hope that I can see Manli in my dream tonight and appreciate the trauma in her heart. Old manuscript. When she put down the novel monthly and prepared to sleepwalk into the paradise world, the Sandman had already disappeared without a trace. She tossed and turned on the sofa, unable to fall asleep and very excited. Each one was placed neatly on the table, and in the end there was a thin booklet with the word "old manuscript" written on it. She had indeed forgotten when this old manuscript was written. I thought about it for a long time, but I couldn't remember it, so I couldn't. Brother Wu likes to cry so much. He wrote me a letter yesterday, which was so pitiful. And on that letter paper, you can still make out the dots of tear stains. He said, "Sister, you always seem to understand nothing. When you and I sit together under the crabapple tree, you always look at the sky. Smiling silently, what about me? It seemed like I was very proud, but actually I was quite sad. Did you know? My father is old, where is my mother? I have gone back a long time ago. I have no brothers or sisters. I am just alone. I am so lonely, sister. Why are you ignoring me? Do you really want me to cut out a bright red heart with a sharp knife like frost and snow to show you? I know that children may not have much experience, and they are not very moved by adult sadness, but sister, you are the smartest person in the world, with the sparkle in your eyes. Always illuminate my heart, you will never fail to understand me. Last night, we were sitting on the Taihu rock, and I asked my sister, can you love me? Why are you just smiling naively, huh? I'm really sad, sister. You are the warm wind in spring. You can blow away the world's sorrows, but you never blow it to me. You are God's favorite and can give life to people, but you always ignore me. Well, I prayed in a low voice, but my sister always smiled so naively. Sister, please don't make it difficult for me. That night, Zhang Sheng carried his luggage for him. His brother patted his shoulder and said, when I have the opportunity to go to Beijing in the future, I will still stay at our house. I will often write to us when I get there. I am standing at the gate at this time, watching the coachman carrying the box. The beads of sweat flowed down from his forehead, rolling like soybeans. One of them happened to roll into his mouth. I couldn't help but think of my little sister taking her tears and swallowing them as nectar, and I couldn't help but laugh again. Brother Wu suddenly sighed, took my hand and said, Sister. As if I had lost something, I looked up at Brother Wu, as if he was crying again. This time I couldn't help but feel sad, so I turned around and ran to the bedroom, hid my head under the quilt and started sobbing. But the time I cried was short-lived, and I fell asleep within 10 minutes. Really, this time I am the saddest. It's a pity that Brother Wu never saw it. On this day, a letter from Brother Wu came. He said, Sister who loves to laugh, where do you think I live now? What is the furnishings of that house and my situation like? What if you saw that bean-like little flame? There is a faint green light, and when you hear the weavers in front of the window crying sadly, you may have to frown. But I remember that I always like to tell you sad things, so that your innocent and lively heart may be frustrated. I really feel guilty about this. But I can't control myself. Sister, do you forgive me? Since I left you, I feel even more uninterested in life. I only ask God to keep you alive so that you will always be a dewy fairy flower, forever planted in the indifferent flower pond, making it slightly alive. After 2 years, Brother Wu stopped writing to me. I heard my brother say, Brother Wu married sister-in-law Wu last year. Now I don't like to cry anymore. But my smile can never recover. I still find it funny. And I asked him with a smile, what were you thinking about in the park yesterday? Sister Wan said you must have been wronged by someone, is it true? Brother Wu seemed to be about to cry, and I was a little scared, really. Sister Wan and I went for a walk in the park together. When we walked near the bamboo pavilion at the back, we saw a young man holding a book and putting it on his knees, with his eyes looking at the sky, silently lost in thought. We only saw his back in the distance, and Sister Wan pointed. The young man told me, look. Isn't that person crazy? He must have suffered some hardship and came here alone to be in a trance. After hearing this, I couldn't help laughing. I thought to myself that this person is really sad, and he can be friends with Brother Wu. Sister Wan couldn't hold back. Said, strange. Strangeness. We want to see who this is. So we deliberately turned back and walked to the pavilion. It was okay if I didn't look, but when I looked, I couldn't help laughing. It turned out to be Brother Wu. The old manuscript ends here, and there is a small poem at the end that says, "The skylark flew all over the 9 heavens. God of laughter. Hidden deep in the clouds. Searching and searching. When I came to the vast sea, there were only white waves like smoke. The sea fog blinded my eyes." The day after I received Brother Wu's letter, I got up very early. I took a pen and paper and wrote again and again. I didn't finish it until lunch. I was really surprised why it was so difficult to write this letter. Sister Wan came to read it, and I didn't know how to write, so I managed to write a few words. Brother Wu. I don't like to laugh much now. But I don't understand why. Yes. I remember. After I left you, I only laughed twice. One time was when Sister Wan fell off the bed because she and her brother were grabbing apples to eat, and the other time was when my brother was writing and drawing a beard on his face. Except for these 2 times, I really never laughed again. I only wrote these few sentences, and I can't write any more. But I didn't send this letter for a long time. After Brother Wu left, I always felt melancholy, and I was too lazy to go to the garden or eat. Mom asked me why. I didn't know what to say. After 5 or 6 days, Sister Wan moved into our house, and my spirits gradually recovered. But when I mentioned Brother Wu, I felt puzzling, not as funny as before. Brother Wu seemed to be wondering why I didn't cry with him. In fact, I wiped my tears secretly that time. He just didn't see it. Do you blame me? How could I have the nerve to tell him that I cried? Brother Wu has lived in my house for a year, and he has cried countless times. I once heard people say, only women in the world love to cry, but Brother Wu actually loves to cry more than women. Brother Wu just likes to be sad and cry. Sometimes I seem to be sad, but I think it is easier to cry than to laugh. I remember one time when my grandma was very ill, and my brothers all cried secretly, and I wanted to cry too. But in the evening my mother felt better, and I still laughed. Oh. This is just a bunch of old manuscripts, collected without meaning, why bother? Mei Xing said to herself, twisting the old manuscript into flying catkins, and the pieces were fluttering. But she still felt that it was stained, so she lit a fire and turned the old manuscript into dust in an instant. Yu Xian. Qian Wan was having a deep sleep in the afternoon. Suddenly I was awakened by the noise of sparrows on the tree in front of the window. She opened her sleepy eyes, arranging the curly hair covering her forehead, and turned over to sit up. At this time, the willow leaves outside the window were blown by the warm wind, dancing here and there. It seems to have a slight fragrance. As for the blue sky, it seems to contain the indescribable joy of spring. But Qian Wan just sighed slightly when facing such beautiful scenery, and then left everything at present without hesitation, walked to the study outside, and sat in front of the case. Holding a bald pen, bowed his head and meditated. Soon, the deep strings in her heart actually emitted a mournful sound, lingering on the tip of her pen. She took a piece of paper and wrote, dash. Time, terrible time. You run. How many young people have turned white on their temples, how many children have lost their innocence, and how many middle-aged people have exhausted their aspirations. You make the earth look desolate and desolate at one time, and make the world prosperous and bright at the other. Only in your quiet running. I don't know how much sorrow is brewing in the world. Who hasn't grown old and beautiful in your Mercedes-Benz and turned white on the temples? People have just entered the world of white snow, cold plums, and cold plums. If you don't watch out, you will escape quietly early, packing up all kinds of cold postures in the ice and snow. And the chatty orioles, who bring the chatty orioles, can't help spreading the news of spring, awakening the lurking flower souls and the hidden willow eyes. Alas, what's the point of ruthless timing? Although the dry willow branches are covered with soft green silk, how can they tie up the mood of the wanderer? The flowers are red and the grass is green. How can it soothe the souls of those who are in the desert? It merely warns people that the years ahead are limited. Well, timing. Thank you, the cherries are red and the bananas are green. Ying Yan will praise you loudly for the prosperity in her eyes. What about people? Only smiling at you through tears. Soon. People will sing elegy for you, dash, spring is here. Spring is here. The myriad of purples and reds turned into withers in an instant, only the fragrant grass in front of the steps was left, and a few remaining heroes, scattered all over the ground without anyone sweeping them. Butterflies are lazy and bees are lazy, such troubles, ask Dongfeng, why is it so ruthless? It makes people grow old once a year. There was only a little yellow-white light on this day, and the waning moon was still hanging in the sky. Their traveling team had already set off. I feel that the morning breeze is still a bit chilly. Later, the road became more and more rugged, because the waterfall was on a mountain more than 3,000 feet high. When we were about to reach the high mountain, we heard a rumbling sound, like thousands of horses galloping, and like all the machines moving together. They followed the sound and saw the highest waterfall from a distance. The waterfall fell from a lake on the mountain. So the waterfall became a straight white ladder-like shape. There are high mountains all around the waterfall, and the sun never shines on it. When they arrived here, not only did their burning bodies feel cool immediately, but the spiritual flames that had been burning for a long time were gradually extinguished. Her troubled heart. Being washed clean by this cool surroundings, I was left spotless. She felt the limitation of life and the hypocrisy of human affairs. She couldn't help but regret what she said to Zhang Shengde yesterday. She had promised him to be his only comforter, but now she felt too small. How can you comfort him? At the same time, I feel that human beings are just like puppets on the stage. Love and marriage are just a scene, and how much price must be sacrificed in order to gain this moment of infatuation? Oh, why bother? Let's reject him, right? She still wants me to serve her for 100 years. After the school work is over, I will accompany her back to the countryside to plant some mulberry, hemp and rice, so that we will not have to worry about food and clothing. In your free time, watch the Suddenly she saw Zhang Shengde turning around from behind the mountain and saying, looking from Mi Siwen's perspective, the scenery here is more interesting. She followed him and turned behind the mountain, only to see faint green mountains and rippling clear water. The waterfall that is enough to wash away the dust and mist is different. A seemingly quiet virgin. A seemingly unparalleled hero. There was a very flat rock there, and she and he sat there to rest. In this silence, Zhang Shengde looked at her with a smile many times, as if this beautiful situation was specially created for her and him. But this was just his dream, and what he thought was his comforter had been deprived of him by the power of nature in the previous hour. When he expressed satisfaction with her, she was giving him a spoonful of cold water in return. She said, "Miss Tuozhang, I hope you don't make up your mind, to be honest. I can never be your lifelong companion." Alas! She really didn't even think about the pain of the frustrated one. A few days later, they left the blue seaside and came to a scenic spot. It was almost a month before they started traveling. It's been months. Everyone feels tired. That night, when she got off the train, she proposed to go see the highest waterfall tomorrow morning, but her companions just replied feebly, "We are very tired, and we have to rest for a day anyway before going." She listened to her companions. Very disappointed. I saw Zhang Shengde saying, "Mi Si Wen, if you are happy to go see the waterfall tomorrow, I can accompany you. I heard that Mi Si Yang and Mi Si Tuoyang are also going, so the four of us will go first. If you are happy after a day, it's okay. Let's take another walk with them." Fortunately, the beauty is not something you can get tired of once you see it. After hearing this, she was extremely happy and agreed to go with Miss Yang the next morning. Xiao Ju. I understand now that in life, if you lose the comfort of passion, no matter how vast the sea and the sky are, it will be difficult to relieve your depressed heart, no matter how beautiful the mountains and clear waters are. It only increases the feeling of cherishing the scenery. I am living now all because of this inextinguishable passion, which makes me fall in love with my mother, relatives, and friends, and makes me unable to bear to leave them, otherwise I would have died with the speed of time. How can we support it to this day? But where does the elusive passion come from? How is my life experience drifting away? Once my mother reveals her secrets, how will I, who is drifting away, be able to take care of myself? My friend, close your eyes and contemplate. In an open field, there is a lamb that has lost its support. There is only one solitary lamb. When dusk comes to the world and a vast curtain surrounds it, how will the lamb feel wandering? Her hoarse whining was so sad. Hey, Xiao Ju. I remember we traveled to Suzhou together and were on the thatched pavilion of Zhonggong Temple. You were still in front of me at that time, but when we listened to the whimpering whine of the lamb on the slope of Tiger Hill, we felt infinitely miserable. Now you are far away from me, and everyone is far away from me. I am just the wailing lamb, who will comfort me? This dark future. How do you ask me to take steps? Friend Xiao Ju, my heart is filled with mist and my mind has been stagnant for a long time. How are you doing now? I think it will be early spring in the south of the Yangtze River. At this time, the peaches will bloom new red and the willows will bloom tender green. It will be a wonderful spring scene and a relaxing and quiet time, just as I wish. The climate in the capital is getting warmer, the grass is green, and spring is joyful. Yesterday I accompanied my mother to the park. The pines and cypresses in the garden were still as green as jade, and the blue water in the pool was still rippling in the wind. The moon is sparse and the stars are sparse, nothing has changed. But Xiao Ju, it's hard to look back on the past, and your Qianwan has become haggard with the passage of time. Well, in the quiet garden, a wanderer, looking at the bright moon alone and looking at the sky, My mood at this time is extremely miserable. How desolate it is to think that when I said goodbye to you last year, I was in the same class as you, and when we are separated from each other, how desolate it is. Besides, I am currently in the hospital dormitory. When you say, Qianwan, I can't accompany you anymore, you mean infinitely well. But the tear stains on the pillow marks are still detectable. I dare not blame you for being patient, and I also know that you have your own difficulties. At that time, your cheeks were flushed and you were filled with tears of pain, so you reluctantly left. I just closed my eyes tightly and couldn't bear to look. At that time, my heart was filled with despair. Alas! I just can't bear to remember it. I once read an ancient poem, "If heaven is sentimental, heaven will also grow old." Poor human beings are originally emotional animals. And sometimes I feel that my thinking is wrong, but I can't control this thought. Well, Xiao Ju. I am just defeated by the Creator anchor, I am just a cripple under the banner of emotion. I have been feeling even more troubled recently. Just like putting it in a bottle. The flowing light keeps urging people to go to the road of old age and death, and the flowers bloom and fade, which is enough to make people feel sad even if they are there. Qianwan was writing when she suddenly heard the sound of a flute, swaying in the air with the gentle spring breeze, like a gurgling stream in an empty valley. Depressed by the moraine-like swallowing, she put down her pen and saw that the sky was already dusk, and the eyebrow-like crescent moon was emitting a faint clear light. The fresh green soft willows are graceful in the wind, and the sound of the flute is coming from the small building in the corner pointed by the willow tip. She put down her appreciate the beauty of Shaosheng. Spring breeze. When life comes, the ice melts on the riverside and the snow on the mountain top melts. I just feel lonely and desolate, and when I think about my future, it is also boundless. Every time those past scars exploded, she thought of her friend who once wrote, "Friend, don't be obsessed." But now that she has aged with time, what else can she say? As Qianwan wrote this, she felt a sense of loss in her heart. She missed her wandering days as a child. She was originally a fatherless orphan, dependent on her widowed mother. But what saddened her the most was she deeply remembered that during one of her trips, it was in the spring of the year. At dusk that day, she stood on the seaside covered with light mist. The green grass and colorful wild flowers always sent a quiet fragrance. Her companions were tired and leaned on the pine trees, or sleep on the grass. She couldn't bear to part with the beautiful scenery of "The sunset is infinitely beautiful." She could only stare blankly at the light blue and slightly reddish clouds and the colorful rainbow at the junction of the sea and the sky, feeling transcended by nature. But a parrot in a cage can be as wide as the sea or as empty as the sky. There is absolutely no room for flying and traveling. While she was leisurely and fascinated, she suddenly heard someone shouting from behind, "Mi Siwen, don't you feel lonely here alone?" She looked back and saw that it was him, the burly Zhang Shangde. She quickly smiled and replied, "Such a quiet and beautiful scenery." It was enough to comfort the traveler's loneliness, so I didn't get tired of watching it for a long time. While she was talking, she saw her companions waving to her, so she and Zhang Shangde went to the depths of the pine forest to look for them. Still burned by the ashes and embers from time to time. Although Qianwan sees through the world, she is still bound by the environment. No matter how beautiful spring scenery smiles at people, it will inevitably arouse her sense of life experience. This is her facing the spring scenery outside the window, thinking of her own drifting, and singing a faint chord. How could she not play nice to her friends? She put away the messy manuscript and started writing to her friend Xiaoju again. She wrote, Ha! In the vast land, where is the destination of the wanderer? Qianwan chewed the lyrics over and over again, feeling increasingly sad and depressed. There is no way to continue the unfinished letter. Just lean on the sofa in a daze, let the moving singing sing, carve up the spiritual fields piece by piece, and let the ruthless years press on you step by step. After victory. This room is really too small. Put a long desk in front of the window, which already takes up 1/3 of the total area. Add 2 sofas and a small coffee table, and there is really no room for maneuver. As for the yard, it is also neat and small, like a piece of dried tofu. There were no flowers or plants planted there, just some square marks. No matter how the news of spring spreads throughout the world, you will never hear the whispering laughter of orioles and swallows, so you can avoid a lot of boredom, the sad cry of cuckoos and the sighs of flower souls. Can't even hear it. The owner who lives in this house is like an old monk under the cliff of an empty mountain. The spring and autumn scenery do not bother them, so naturally they are all empty-minded. But the gentle breezes and warblers passing by seem to pity their loneliness and monotony, and sometimes tell them that spring is coming, or autumn is coming. The sound of footsteps in this empty valley is actually quite troublesome. The spring rain has been coming continuously these days, the sky is just dim all day long, and the rain is leaking continuously. When the owner of the house, Pingji, sat up from the bed, the clouds in the sky were still thick. He looked around and felt very cold and lonely. He yawned lazily, pulled up the corner of the quilt, and fell asleep again. His wife Qiongfang. Just as he walked in from the back room, he saw that Pingji was asleep again, so he didn't disturb him. He just sat in front of the desk and straightened the old newsprint. He happened to see an unopened letter. It was sent by her friend Shinji. She hurriedly cut the seal with scissors and read, My friend Xiongfang, people are really unpredictable. We have been separated for 3 years, and everything about you is naturally different from before. I heard that you are now a mother and your baby can already talk. Hey, Qiongfang. How funny this is. When I saw you back then, you were still an innocent child. Now, everything has changed. Not only you, but also I can't bear to look back on the past. I will tell you now what happened after I left you. When I left Beijing, in my last letter to you, I always thought that Qingji would end up wandering all over the world. If this was the case, Qiongfang could not help but lament the fate of the frustrated people. Whenever the wind is clear and the moon is white, your thoughts may be aroused. A few drops of sad tears missing the wandering people. But the fact is, in my journey in the human world, I finally won. After parting ways with my friends, I planned to study in the new world after the summer vacation. However, as luck would have it, when the news that Xiao Qing and I were leaving came out, unexpectedly, he was found out by his father, who couldn't bear for us to leave with sadness due to the unresolved marriage, so we would not plan our overseas plans until after we got married. How was Qingji feeling at that time? If my wandering life experience could come to an end, would be happy to do so. But thinking about all the sacrifices after marriage makes me hesitate. We once went to the seaside where you and I used to visit, and there we saw a few small huts, covered with broken pear petals, and the bright red wall tiles were very bright. The window outside the house faces the white-capped sea. We sat on the rocks by the seaside, just looking at each other in silence, sometimes sad and sometimes happy. Qiongfang, I can't describe this feeling of sadness and joy. In short, when I think about the sorrows and hardships I went through when I married Xiaoqing, and today's victory, it is naturally enough to be proud of, but at the same time, thinking about the past, I can't help but feel sad. At that time, we were in the depths of a drunken dream, and we were infatuated for a moment. We truly felt that the heaven and the earth were smiling, and the mountains and rivers were filled with joy. During our honeymoon period, we are just like drunkards in a drunken country. Nothing can touch our hearts. I never thought about the future again. Coincidentally, it was springtime at that time. The wind was blowing warmly, the flowers were blooming with smiles, and the butterflies and bees were flying happily. When we got tired of staying together in the house, we would go for a walk on a quiet road. There is a cemetery for foreigners near our house. It is often quiet and there are some passionate people. From time to time, many flowers are placed on the tomb of the transcendent ghost, and there are also roses that compete with the morning sun. There are also crabapples that are as clean as by Shui. As for the light yellow camellia and rose, they are often mixed together. As for the most holy angels, they gaze into the sky as if blessing the dead, and when we sit at the feet of those angels as pure as crystal, they often bless us as well. This beautiful and quiet environment often changes our busy life. We sat there leaning against each other, no matter talking about the music in detail or singing love songs in a low voice, except for the occasional eavesdropping by Brother Chun who came by occasionally, or the peeping of the ghost hiding behind the white stone tomb. No one will bother us anymore. Unknowingly, the good times were wasted a lot. This mysterious and passionate love gradually felt dull. Moreover, the limitations of facts cannot always be ignored. Xiaoqing's work has started again, and he goes out at 8 o'clock every morning. I always don't come back until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. At this time, I was the only one left in the quiet courtyard, and the wheel of my thoughts had already started turning again. Thinking of everything in the past and everything in the present, the big problem in life is solved by getting married. But people are by no means so simple. In addition to this big problem, there are other big problems. In fact, taking care of housework is also a thing, and it is the only responsibility of a married woman. According to the traditional saying, this is naturally the case. But Qingji is really unwilling to end it like this. As long as she thinks that women are not only born to clean housework, she can't help but think about what she should do in the future. Of course. At this time, I was still doing some homework in a school, so I could masturbate. And I can still read when I have free time, so my restless mind can be temporarily calmed down. The plum rainy weather soon arrived. The sky was full of tears all day long, and the sound of rain came and went. The air around was extremely dull. It inevitably arouses feelings of boredom and annoyance again. In the afternoon, Xiao Yu came to talk in the rain. When she talked about her life after starting a family, she felt very bleak. She said, "The fun of getting married is just mediocre." I saw her dejected look and thought about it again and again. She also found it boring, but at that time she was able to courageously comfort her and said, "We are not too rustic, and getting married is still a human thing. Now that we have reached this point, we have to cheer up. In fact, being single because of career achievements is certainly a coaxing. For a while, but the spirit is monotonous and dry. It is not without suffering. Besides, things in the world can only be done by those who are willing to do so. Even after getting married, it is not impossible to make a difference. As long as you are not greedy for the current pleasures and do not work as a clothes hanger and a meal bag, you will be enough to comfort yourself. Why bother yourself for the elusive vanity and glory? Xiao Yu couldn't let go of her worries after my explanation. Later she said, "Your will is much stronger than mine. Now that I am sluggish, I have no choice but to let him go. In the future, when a child is born and I have more worries, will I still be able to talk about social undertakings?" Qiongfang. What do you think after reading this passage? To be honest, this kind of mentality of looking back on the past, being tired of the present, and fearing the future is not limited to Xiao Yu. It's Qingji, who finally sees everything more clearly, but what's the reality? What were my ambitions when I just left school? Why sacrifice for mankind? All kinds of great wishes are still just wishes. Whenever I see a great person in history, I shed tears because of my devout worship. I remember that the great poet from India came to China in the spring. I once admired his magnificence. His bright and silent eyes seemed to encompass everything in the universe. His thoughts and intentions, like pure water, could reveal people's great and profound thoughts. Pure humanity. When I listened to his wonderful words, I actually shed tears. I shed tears because I admired him, and I shed tears because I was even more ashamed of myself. I received a letter from Zong last week. She knew that. I really think she is more willing than us, don't you think? The strangest thing is that recently I have been very nostalgic for the beauty of being a virgin. Qiongfang. You should still remember the autumn when the green and slightly scorched autumn grass was everywhere. On an extremely early autumn morning. It was only about 6 o'clock at that time. Although the sun was already shining in the sky, the cool breeze was blowing on my face, already full of autumn air. Let me encourage you and go to the park road. When I arrived in the garden, I heard a gust of wind blowing through the remaining leaves. Using their sharp little mouths to pick off their messy feathers, the magpies invite their companions to go out to look for food. We were the only ones in the garden at that time, and the others were the men cleaning the corridor and the shop assistants, arranging the tables, chairs, and all the utensils. We came to the rockery stone. You found a very white stone to sit down on, and I just reclined on the green grass next to you. You once laughed at my wildness, but from now on this poetic and picturesque life will only appear in my dreams. The wild me only appears occasionally in your impression. I remember that the night before yesterday, Xiao Qing went to an appointment with a friend. I am alone in a lonely cell, while the moon is shining brightly in the sky. I turned off the lamp and sat on the sofa opposite the window. It turns out that the thin yellow flowers on the rocks in the yard are already in full bloom, and the white stone ground is filled with silver light. Looking up at the sky, the stars are sparse and the light is quiet. The willow branches on the partition wall are swaying in the wind, and the shadows on the ground are like undulating silver waves. When I was traveling to the east with your clan. One night, it was the night we took the boat to Hiroshima. We boarded the boat at dusk. Not long after boarding the boat, I saw a very full moon rising slowly from the place where the sea and the sky meet. When it reached the zenith, it was bright and clear. Looking at the cold blue sea water, it feels so clear and refreshing. The stars are dotted, competing with the electric lights on the shore to reflect the sea surface. Every time the waves surge, you can see thousands of golden flowers shining on the sea. After 10 o'clock, all the people on the boat were asleep, and there was only the sound of gurgling water and knocking on the side of the boat. A kind of cold and secluded state. It's like transporting us from the troubled world to an isolated island of mystery and indifference. At that time, we leaned on the railing and were speechless, silently facing the moon, and trusting everything to the sky and the blue sea. It wasn't until the ship was about to set off that I returned to the cabin. But when I think about it, I feel happy and free from the dust. Who would have thought that after coming back, would still be trapped, and my shackles would become even deeper? Well, Qiongfang. It's like this every year, people and things are changing. How sad is it to think about the past that night? Qiongfang. I only miss the past too much, and I feel that the situation in front of me is like chewing wax. How profound is the situation after this victory? In the past few months, my interest in life has still been to force myself to enjoy myself. People scolded me for being weird, but I could only bow my head and acquiesce. In May this year, when Chi came from her hometown. When we met, we just looked at each other in silence, as if no words could express our feelings after farewell. Only a pair of eyes can reveal the secrets of the heart. When Chi can naturally be proud of herself. She still maintains her virgin life to this day. She seems a little strange to us, but Qiongfang. You know that insects in the world can never escape the shackles of the world. I think you must also be very willing to know her current situation, right? After when she said goodbye to US, didn't she return to her hometown with her father? At first, she was quite leisurely. Her family lived in a village surrounded by water. The natural beauty in the morning and evening was enough to wash away the dust and fog in her mind. Moreover, she bought many Buddhist scriptures, studied them with her mother every day, and taught her younger brothers and sisters. It was really a transcendental thing. She had no choice but to abandon her carefree spiritual life and turn it into a mechanical and busy life. She wrote me a letter a month ago and said, Chinji, the letter arrived unexpectedly, and I am so happy to have the sentiment of Empty Valley. Sometimes I just make up some children's songs for primary school students. Time is limited, trivial matters are complicated, and colleagues are insignificant. This situation can only be solved by busy people. Very much so. The unnatural work is so demanding that there is no way to think about self-study. What a pity. Qiongfang. As long as you read this paragraph of hers, you should be able to recall the busy impression we had in Beijing, but sometimes being busy can reduce the boredom. These words we haven't fully described Wenqi's recent situation. Do you know Xiaoqing's friend Chang Jun? This man is indeed a very knowledgeable and enthusiastic man. China is a country that advocates early marriage. How many people in their 30s have never gotten married? This is indeed true. Chang Jun was already married when he was 20 years old, but unfortunately his wife died 3 or 4 years ago and he never renewed their relationship. He and Xiaoqing are very good. Come to our house often. One time when Qi sent me a photo, which happened to be seen by Chang Jun. We unknowingly talked about Wen Qi's life and knowledge. Chang Jun praised her very much and asked us to introduce Wen Qi as a friend. I thought about it at the time. This was a good thing, because he immediately wrote to Wenqi. But you should know that Wenqi is by no means a very happy person, and she has always obeyed her family. Whether this thing can be done or not, we are just trying it out. Later we asked someone to explain it to his father. Although her father praised Chang Jun very much, Wenqi was naturally helpless. Later, Wenqi brought her students to our place to visit the education, and had the opportunity to meet Chang Jun again. Chang Jun was originally a scholar who was erudite and good at poetry. Wenqi is also a proud and arrogant woman. During the 2 weeks of their contact, the two parties gradually got to know each other, but Wenqi's attitude was still hesitant. The biggest reason for this, I'm sorry to say, is probably because of us. A few days ago she had a letter saying, Qingji. We haven't heard from each other for a long time, aren't we feeling isolated? Your last letter has been in my mailbox for a long time. I wanted to write it, but I didn't write it because I was busy and my thoughts were too monotonous. Why are you silent? I know that when you enter a family, you will have your own trivial things to worry about. Xiao Yu wrote. Thinking back to the school situation in the past, I don't want to have the present situation. It really makes me feel infinite, and I feel that life is too plain, but I have a saying from Shinda, the hand that rocks the cradle shakes the world. I would like to pass it on to you. During the summer, I held an educational conference in Nanjing, and several friends once talked about it. The current education of women in our country is a huge failure. Once highly educated women enter a family, they are neither good at managing household chores nor able to take care of social careers. These people are simply high-class nomads. What do you think of this? A woman enters the family. If you don't engage in social undertakings, is it necessary to obtain higher education? I wrote a lot as I took the initiative to write. You may not want to read these dry and tasteless words, but I have written them, so I will send them to you for now. Why not study it? I'd love to hear about your family reports. One more thing, I must tell you and Xiao Yu, our former classmates at the same level, all expected our ending to be mediocre. How could we be willing to admit it? I think we still have pride, so let's move forward. How should we strive to make progress? How to book our future? I really hope you can tell me and guide me. Qiongfang. I see her words, don't they cast great doubt on us? In fact, it's no wonder her, why don't we ourselves doubt our future ending? But I think that when a woman enters the family, there are many obstacles to social undertakings, but it is not absolutely impossible to take into account social undertakings. What we are worried about now is not that the family cannot let go, but that there is no career in society. According to the current situation in China, bureaucrats who exploit the common people are insignificant, but the sacred cause of education is in decline. In today's education system, I doubt that education can teach students well, and I even doubt the sanctity of education, not to mention other sordid situations. Just talk about the teacher who is like a gramophone. I am really sorry for the students and myself. I remember when I was a teacher in Beijing, one day I came back from teaching for students and was sitting in the teacher's lounge. Suddenly I felt a conscience attack and my face immediately started to heat up like fire. I can't express how ashamed I feel. I feel that I am really the first sinner in the world. I should not deceive these innocent children and deceive myself, when I put on a serious face and teach the children. I really don't understand what I know more than them. Or are they only more cunning than them? They cry immediately when they are upset, and adults may tell them, it is embarrassing to cry, and they should put on a smile in front of others. Well, what more can be said about an unnatural life? What can be done about this kind of education that destroys human nature? Moreover, how many people who work in education feel that education is a sacred cause? They just hold on to a textbook, work for an hour, and get paid for an hour. Even if it is a big deal. Alas, I think that instead of competing with men for this unclean bowl of educational food, women should quietly take care of family affairs at home, and therefore receive some rewards from men, which is clear of their conscience. As for other than education, there are even fewer careers to pursue. To put it simply, in China today, everything is out of the question. Needless to say, women have nothing to do, and the men who are idle have also received higher education. I don't know how many there are. Of course, many of them are naturally lazy, but most of them want to do something but can't do it, right? Qiongfang, you don't know that because our school needs to change its principal, there are so many people who have filled this position through the movement. If the details of the strife within it are revealed, it really brings disgrace to the education sector. Well, if society is like this, if we don't think from the fundamentals, there will never be a bright future. But in any case, Wen Qi's letter really encouraged us a lot. To be honest, Chinese families are really enough to kill people's aspirations. I feel that since I entered the family, my former friends have become less and less. Now the only friends I have with are either social friends or unrelated relatives. They either barely talk to each other about social affairs, deal with it carelessly, or play cards. Watch the show. Needless to say, there is no need to talk about profound academic theories, and even a friend with whom one can talk about one's sincerity is not available, and there are inevitably many trivial matters between families. Every day when I open my eyes, I fall deeply into the prison of this world. It is no longer easy to concentrate on studying. Not to mention any activities. Well, Qiongfang, people are so pitifully stupid. When they are not married, they dream of a happy life after marriage. In fact, there is no shortcoming in the uneven earth. Having said this, I thought of Leng Xiu again. You probably still remember her lively temperament and chic attitude. But now, she is even more pitiful than us. She is really the #1 loser in the world. Who would have imagined her calm and arrogant attitude when she was working with us? Among her peers, she was the most addicted. She often says that the world is a testing ground and never trusts people easily. She was even more hesitant about the path to love, but in the end, she finally boldly stepped into the testing ground in hopes of final victory. Although there were many sharp thorns in front of her that could prick the blood from the soles of her feet, she did not hesitate. When she first became friends with the young Wen Zhong, no one could have imagined that he and she would fall in love, because Wen Zhong was already married, and Leng Xiu had a very high self-esteem. In the end, they united for the mission of loving God. After they got married, they returned to his hometown, where Wen Zhong's former wife was also there. When Wen Zhong married Leng Xiu, he also sought the consent of his previous wife. On the surface, naturally, everyone smiled kindly at each other, but according to Leng Xiu's letter to me, since she returned home, her mind has completely changed, and she often feels that there is an unspeakable shortcoming hidden deep in her heart. Whenever the god of night comes, she often makes people think deeply. She always feels that the perfection of love cannot tolerate a third party. Even if the third party is just a form, this love is also flawed. Therefore, her lively temperament became increasingly depressed. I remember some of her most painful words. I once used the sharpest eyes to assess the value of the world, but just like a pessimistic or world-weary philosopher, I clearly believe that the world is a sea of suffering, everything is limited and empty, but I cannot escape from the prison of this world. Tai. In the history of my own life. Can't find anything out of the ordinary. I have also been tempted to tears by the God of love, and I have also stabbed the fragile soul with the sword of knowledge. I am like a weak sheep who once came to countless flocks with great desire to choose the most suitable partner. The perfection in my imagination is just like the clear sky in autumn, without a single cloud, and everything is just a melted combination. It is also like the frost chrysanthemum in late autumn, with its deep and delicate fragrance, which can only be appreciated by experts and not allowed to be observed by bees and butterflies. These hopes are of course easy to obtain. But the unfortunate Ling Xiu opened up a barren garden and scattered rose seeds, but the thorns that had not been rooted out took the opportunity to flourish. The autumn sky was finally obscured by ruthless floating clouds, and the spiritual flame in her heart was almost extinguished by the cold wind and rain. As she sat in silence with sorrow. How does she feel about the solitary lamp that is half lit and half extinguished? How can we blame her for the cries of cranes in the sky and the cries of apes in the deep valleys? In March of this year, she sent me a new song. I felt uncomfortable reading it for a few days. Unfortunately, I lost her original manuscript, but I still vaguely remember it. It's like a Tao. The leakage is heavy and the wind is miserable. The stars are falling and the clouds are weeping. I quietly lit the lamp and sat there. How sad it was. I missed the incompleteness of heaven and earth. There is no way to fill the sea of hatred. Are you feeling the pain in your heart? Infatuated with love and ultimately obsessed with it. How sad. How sad. Why is it that one's enlightenment is not profound, but one wanders on the wrong path? I am ashamed of Shija's words. If it is not complete, would rather have nothing. Qiongfang, after reading this sad heartfelt message, how will you feel? I feel that not only do I need to shed tears of sympathy for the unfortunate Ling Xiu, but in this transitional era, there is more than just Ling Xiu. Because Ling Xiu could not get a perfect love, she had already felt this kind of situation. Can the pity and misery of her former wives like Wenzhong, who were just like Wenzhong, be imagined? Well, Qiongfang. I always say that Ling Xiu is a free bird in the mountains. She is drowning in the world's sorrows for the sake of love. This is also the victory she has gained through her struggle. You only get full of misery, and your ambitions are all wasted for this. Having said this, I can't help but sigh. Chinese women are so pitiful now. The day before yesterday, I went to Xiao Yu's daughter Miyue and saw the child sleeping on her lap. When Xiao Yu saw me, his eyes suddenly turned red and he said to me, "It's better to be celibate. We are all on the wrong path." Alas! How painful these words are. We are all really fools. How courageous are we when we struggle with our families and must sacrifice everything for love? Now we have finally won, and after the victory it turns out that there will still be more suffering and less joy, and there will be fewer things to hope for. You can give up the thought of masturbating. Is life still interesting to people? I used to think that as long as we have a loving partner, our ideal life can be ruined. The result of trying now is that everything cannot be avoided from the control of things. The pleasure beyond the world can only be found in the late night when the stars and moon are bright. Occasionally, I get together with the flower soul, and I feel that I have wandered across the sky, swimming between heaven and earth. As for the fairy island with vast sea and sky, and the beautiful scenery of green grass and beautiful flowers, we can only hope to stop when the time comes. Qiongfang. The long days have passed, and I have no time to masturbate and meditate. Feeling wandering both physically and mentally. I originally planned to travel to Italy with Shaoqing next spring so that the natural beauty can heal my serious illness, but due to financial constraints, I may end up having to draw cakes to satisfy my hunger. Thank you Qiongfang for cheering me up by writing behind closed doors. Why don't I want to do this? I have no choice but to immerse myself in the world for many years, and I don't know when my ambition and interest have been completely exhausted, so I have written and written words, which are also perfunctory. And Ning can use the spiritual juice in his heart to irrigate the dry waste garden, so that strange flowers bloom and fairy flowers are revealed. Woolen cloth? Qiongfang, can you predict my results? Qingji. Qiongfang felt heartbroken after reading Qingji's letter. She looked around at her own environment. All the natural beauty and ideal life were just castles in the air. She sighed unconsciously. This will only be the case after victory. Unexpectedly, Pingji, who was already awake, heard this and asked, "What did you say?" Qiongfang didn't want him to know the secret in her heart, so she smiled and said, "It's already late, why don't you get up?" Pingji lazily replied, "There is nothing to do, it's boring." Qiongfang couldn't help but sigh. Being a human being is just boring. By the way, being a human being is just boring. From then on, these discordant words were stopped, and only the slightly vibrating heartstrings responded to each other. The Confessions of Lan Tian. After dinner, it was already dusk, and the mountain wind was roaring. Desolate physically and mentally. I was sitting alone, bored, when Xiaopu suddenly pushed the door open and said, "Yin, do you want me to come?" I said happily, "What kind of wind brought you here?" "There is no moonlight tonight. Are you so surprised that you would come?" She continued with one hand and held up a pamphlet in the other hand and said, "I am only here for this mission." Shouldn't this kind of sad sound that makes people's soul strings tense be repeated in this quiet and cold night? And my whole fragile heart. I really can't tolerate this sad voice. How could I not come to you? My mind raced as I listened to Xiaopu's words. Before she could continue, I opened the booklet and read it. I saw the title above was Lantian's Confessions. Oh. That's enough, just these 6 words. Just 6 words had already messed up my steps. Before I could look any further, the impression of a very familiar face, body shape, and the movements of Lan Tian flooded into my mind. To be honest, if the word beautiful is mentioned, she really can't get it. She has a rectangular face and a pair of sparse eyebrows that are not bad, but too wide and loose, a bit like uneven brooms. The eyes are quite big, but they are too protruding, making them look a bit like goldfish eyes. The nose is flat. The mouth is square, and it is a good face of an ancient hero. However, if it grows on a woman's face, at least a lot of the charm will be lost. Speaking of body posture, although there is not much wrong with it, there is nothing outstanding about it. On the contrary, his temperament is extremely honest and sincere. Anyone who has known her for a long time will be able to forget her unsightly appearance because of her inner beauty. The wind and rain picked up one after another, and only the fallen leaves in front of the steps groaned slightly. They may have the same problem as me. However, each other is too weak, and there is no use in pity. I stared at the door helplessly, but it has been 18 or 19 hours since last night. What else can I expect besides disappointment? Money and vanity are the things that can make young people fall for them. Lamb tin at that time. Although I was sick, even for 2 months, no one came to greet me all the time. Some sent food, and some sent flowers. In particular, He Ren and Wang Yi were very attentive to me. In this ruthless human race, it is really easy to be bullied when dealing with each other. It is rare for these two young people, especially He Ren. I have a sense of sympathy with him. His life experience is also wandering. I am still struggling to survive under the cruel stepmother. Naturally, it became easier for me to contact him. Later, when I recovered from my illness, He Ren, asked Sister Ji to express his sincerity, and we soon got engaged in the park. Isn't this a happy union? However, now that I think about it, it is the spring silkworm that has trapped itself in a cocoon, so who can blame it for bringing it upon itself? Well, my heart ached and my hands were shaking. I regretted it. Is there any way I could control my tears? August 19th. This wind and rain, the miserable rain, the sharp wind, blew and fell deep into the night. Although Sister Ji is afraid that I will bother me and won't let me talk too much, besides, we don't want to talk anymore. Talking about it is full of stimulating and exciting words, but even though Sister Ji is holding a novel and sitting silently under the ghost-like light, making the whole world fall into a hypnotic state, my square inch in the spiritual sea, there are still turbulent waves. I look back at the pain of the past and wonder about the terrible future. Even if there is no future, I have almost reached the end of the world. Although I also know that the earth is round, I almost have no courage and no tools. The delusion that there is a new world has been slowly extinguished like lightning in the dark clouds. At this time, the wind was still roaring, and although there were voices in the distance, it was only vaguely identifiable as someone speaking. There was only silence nearby. Except for the occasional slight noise caused by the wind blowing on the doors and windows, everything was in a sleep state, so I was given the best opportunity to read Confessions by Lan Tian. On the 10th day of August. I remember that I was also suffering from liver qi disease at that time. But I wasn't as down and out as I am now. Although the crazy He Ren and Wang Yi tried their best to show their cunning faces now, at that time, they were full of energy. They said, we should do our best to help needy women. Besides, she is ill. Of course, I realized now that I was still working as a correspondent for a certain newspaper at that time, and I had an income of 30 or 40 yuan a month, so that I could avoid the desolation I feel today. But this is equivalent to a thief closing the door. It's too late to realize now. I remember when I first arrived in Beijing, I was studying in a certain university, and crazy young people tried their best to seduce and scorn me. On the one hand, they were very high-sounding, and they praised me for being a hard worker. Brave general. She is an ambitious woman, and she even flatters me that I am a beacon in the female world. Poor inexperienced me, I was so frightened that after receiving this unexpected praise and comfort, I couldn't help but nakedly dedicate my heart and soul to them and serve as their best teaser. It's natural. Ren's new wife is very charming. This is because God is so kind to her. I dare not blame her. However, Ren deceived me very hard. Not long after we got engaged, I discovered that he was in love with someone else. I said to him, our union is guaranteed by each other's personality. But I also know that I may not be suitable for you in appearance, but we have been together for several years, and I always treat you as my younger brother. It would be okay if we continue the relationship between brother and sister forever. You can be sincere to me, explain. At first he thought I was doubting him. I don't know whether he felt guilty or was just using means, but he actually cried and swore to me, of course. Now I have realized that no matter what kind of fool, he will never let go when he still needs help from others. And I was naturally blinded by his tears at that time. He was still living in my house until the first 2 days after they announced their marriage. Well, what kind of sin is this, that makes me fall into the abyss and never get back up? From that day on, Ma Zhang braided my hair every day, and the whole family seemed busy with something. From time to time I heard Zhang's mother telling me, "Don't make any noise, the doctor is here, my mother is seriously ill." Suddenly one night, when I was falling asleep, Zhang's mother picked me up and said as if she was crying, "Poor little boy, his mother is gone." I don't know why. But she disturbed my sleep, and I began to cry. When I walked to my mother's house, I heard my father and cousins crying. As for my mother, she was sleeping upright on the bed, with a piece of white paper covering her face. From that day on, I could never see my mother again. Soon Ma Zhang left and was replaced by Ma Wang. I didn't like her at all. She often scolded me and sometimes beat me. Of course, my father is often away from home, so of course she wants to take advantage of herself. Ever since Lan Tian became ill, I have been alone with her day and night. Her sad look made me cry for her several times. When she handed me her confessions, her illness was already very dangerous, but the doctors said that most of her illness was mental, but the mental effects affected the body. Then it is impossible to hope that the body will recover. Well, Xiao Pu, it's not easy to be a human being. Society is like a dragnet, with crises hidden everywhere that can lead to collapse. She herself predicted that her illness would not be cured, so she gave this confessions to me. Human beings are particularly cruel. I am afraid that Lan Tian really has no hope of curing her illness. Xiao Pu, there is more than one Lan Tian in the world. We all must be wary. Well, gloomy destruction. This is exactly what the world is like now. Xiao Pu really stood up and left after saying that. I just nodded to express my intention to see her off and hope she would come back tomorrow. This is intuitively obvious to everyone. Every time he was stimulated, he would remain frozen for several days. My illness was up and down. Although Sister Ji repeatedly comforted and warned me, alas, she was the only one in the world who was willing to give me a way out. What I can't forget the most is the sentence, "Lan Tian, take care of your health and stay safe." There is a final struggle. You should not give up too much. This is indeed a stimulant, making me desperate as if my future is hopeless. Men don't need to be chaste, and they can also talk about love in a cunning way. This is a privilege given to them by society, and they are happy to eat and sleep here and there. However, if it were not for my belief that love cannot tolerate a third party, I would not have escaped from marriage, even to the point of being ostracized by the old society. But why did you deceive me? How many unforgiving humans have that? Really straight. So I became a degenerate person who could not be tolerated by the old or the new. Well, my illness seems to be much less severe. When Sister Ji came in the afternoon, I was already able to get up and recline on the wicker chair. Sister Ji said with great relief, "Since you became ill, I have never been to the park. It's rare that you can get up today. We went to the park to evacuate together. Or it may be beneficial to your illness." I couldn't resist her kindness. I was still very restless and wanted to go out for a change of scenery, so Sister Ji diligently combed my hair. Later I washed my face in the mirror, but I couldn't help but feel frightened and sad for my haggard and sick appearance. Unable to shed tears. Sister Ji immediately took the mirror away and wiped away my tears. Soon we arrived in Berlin's green park with its chirping birds. The weather was indeed good that day, the autumn wind blew softly on my body, my mind immediately opened up, and I suddenly felt that everything around me was filled with business. Although there are no flowers in bloom, the shadows of the trees are whirling, which makes it even more interesting. But suddenly there was a burst of laughter. The harsh laughter made my heart and soul tremble again. Sure enough, it's not that enemies don't get together, it was Hiren and his newlywed lady who came over to hug each other. As if I didn't have to wait for the command from the brain center, I stood up on my feet involuntarily and walked away in a hurry. Everything became clear to her. She sighed softly and said, "Oh, why did it really happen?" I couldn't help chewing on the words she said, and I couldn't help but regret that it really didn't happen. I closed my eyes, quietly shed tears, and swallowed my sobs. What I'm most afraid of is dissatisfying Sister Ji. She is the only one in the world who has mercy on me. How can I bear to make her worry and miserable for me? After a while, Sister Ji thought that I had fallen asleep, so she gently put down the book, looked towards me quietly, and then looked around. Well, naturally, this is equivalent to the ghost realm of the ruins tomb. How could she not sigh? When she was sleeping on the bed, she might have opened the gate of the fountain of tears and wet the quilt pillow just like me. About half an hour later, a slight, snoring sound came from Sister Ji's bed. I knew that Sister Ji had fallen asleep. I quietly sat up and decided to write my confession about life. I predict that I don't have much time left in this world where I don't have enough nostalgia. Even if I don't die of physical illness, I will die of mental illness. And for my selfish sake, I died. But all the torture was cancelled. August 11th. I felt that my family was ruthless to me, and maybe society would allow me some room for maneuver, so I worked hard to study in a primary school. At the age of 14, I entered a middle school. But my new mother often thinks that my studying is superfluous. One day she said to her father, "Tianer is not young anymore, and we have to prepare to arrange a marriage for her." Then she mentioned her nephew, a dandy young man who might be pretty. The family has a lot of money. My father agreed to her without thinking twice. From then on, my soul became even more clouded with mist. However, I still hoped for my unpredictable future, studied hard, and read the works of famous people from time to time. At this time, new trends unknowingly creep into my mind, causing me to worry about marriages that I don't agree with from time to time. But I am helpless, except for crying quietly. Where can I vent my anger? I remember one night, I was in danger for my future. I buried my head in tears, and suddenly Sister Sho from next door came to me. She was my only female companion. We were not only neighbors, but also classmates. At this time, she gently lifted the corners of my quilt and said, "Sister Tian, are you feeling uncomfortable?" It was like a lonely traveler in the desert who suddenly met a traveler. I could only express my loneliness and sorrow to her. She looked at me as if she was indignant and said, "I think you have to stand up for yourself. I came here today just for the bad news about you. Did you know your fiancé now has 3 wives? If you get married, can you get harmonious happiness?" Oh. Oh my God. I really didn't know what to do when I heard the news, and my wedding date has already been set for the 20th of next month. I couldn't help but hold Sister Sho's hand, pleading and anxiously saying, "Sister Sho, what do you think I should do? Do I just give in like this? I am in a mess. What else can I do better than death? How to resist?" After hearing this, Sister Sho couldn't help but cry with me. Finally, she whispered to me, 36 strategies. Walking is the best strategy. Ha! As expected, I left, and as expected, I defeated this unfree marriage. But the ruthless society and cruel human beings have fallen out of the fire pit and fallen into the puddle again. I have decided to write since then. Write in a substantial way, no matter whether it is joyful, regrettable, sad or angry. I always want to write in an honest way, as if through this writing I can drown out the bitterness that is deep in my heart. If this is the final chapter, I will have no regrets. But since I fainted twice that day, my liver qi never stopped, and as a result, the pain in my body suppressed the pain in my heart. Not only have I been unable to write for the past 2 days, but I have also been unable to think. Today, the pain in my liver qi has healed a little, so I continue to write hard. Ever since I fell ill, I have been struggling to survive in poverty. Although I am a girl with a father, I cannot return home until I have a family, which means I am an orphan with nowhere to turn. There were many people, so to speak, experienced older adults, who advised me to settle down and get married, but I am a person who is passionate about the women's movement. I can't sacrifice my interests and personality for food and clothing. Naturally, except for 1 or 2 very close people, everyone can't help but think of me as a woman who likes to mess around. They were never willing to forgive a weak-willed woman. Until now, I don't feel like I regret it. My knowledge has misled me, and my rationality has tortured me. But after being ravaged by others and stained all over, when will it be cleansed? Well, I hate my fate. I hate heartless humans even more. My mother died a year ago, and my father married a new mother. This mother gave me a bun. My mother who hugged me and couldn't stop caressing and kissing me was so different. Not once did she touch me or kiss me, and she seemed to pay little attention to me. But whenever I get naughty, my dad always knows when he comes back. And my father seems different from before. A year later, my new mother adopted a little brother. My father often held him and cuddled his little cheek. So he didn't even care about me. Although I was only a 10-year-old girl at this time, I already felt that my golden age was over. Whenever I think of my mother who loves me, I often cry quietly alone. However, I didn't dare let my new mother see it because she often called me an ominous little creature. Like a chain of thoughts, the whole experience of my childhood emerged. God. My heartache intensifies over this tragic past. I couldn't help but groan from the silence. Sister Ji hurriedly put down the jar she was boiling for me, held my hand and said, "Does the liver qi hurt badly?" I nodded feebly, and tears streamed down my face, dripping on her hand. Later, I couldn't help cursing, this priceless life, the sooner it ends, the better. Sister Ji, if I die immediately, I can still have your warm tears to wash away my sins. I'm afraid if it continues longer, my future will become even dirtier. Dirty and terrible. Maybe I won't even get your tears. Who can forgive a depraved woman with no moral character? She was forced to do so by all kinds of evil circumstances. Oh! I cried heartily, hoping that my tears of repentance might wash away my shame towards the old ethics. Even the new doctrine is tainted. I don't know when I fainted from crying. It wasn't until Sister Ji woke me up repeatedly that I opened my eyes and saw two teenagers standing in front of me. Alas! Another serious injury from a knife. I am still heartbroken. Passed out. August 14th. I was in a state of physical and mental distress. If I hadn't been ashamed of being a coward, would have committed suicide long ago. Sometimes I wonder why there is no room for me to stand up in this big world. But now. In fact, except for Sister Ji, who has the heart of God and loves her fellow men, it seems that no one is secretly discussing my shortcomings, and some of them even embarrass me in person. Of course I am suspected of being degenerate, but as long as humans are willing to forgive even a little bit. Allow me a little hesitation. I don't dare to ask for help from others. I just ask for people not to suffer violent destruction. I can't be grateful enough. Well, what can I say? I didn't even ask for this minimal request, and no one was willing to lift his or her suppressed hand. Let me get through this. September 10th. Alas! Omniscient God, of course I dare not hide it from you, and I cannot hide it from you. When I escape from family tyranny and seek a bright future, I am not only seeking happiness for myself, but also for my fellow female compatriots. Be a pioneer. The spirit at that time was that nothing could be hidden from the omniscient God, and I felt that I could penetrate the clouds and the sky. However, I was tempted by their sympathy. I am afraid only God knows that it was an inevitable danger for an inexperienced woman. Well, the end is coming. During these 10 days of being in a daze, I didn't know what kind of criticism people had towards me, but I always thought that if I really passed away from this world, maybe I would be able to get some sympathy that people didn't need from me. However, it's no longer needed. Why should I care about it? There was just one thing that gave me some comfort, that is, Mrs. Hiren came to see me just now. She held my hand and said, "Sister, although you and I are just acquaintances, however, I came to see you today. But I have deepest sympathy. I only recently learned that Hiren's friendship with you is far greater than mine, but when he proposed to me, he didn't say anything to me. In the end, my sister was like this. Sister, I don't know what to say to you. I only have one sentence. I know it is enough to make you believe. Alas! We have become victims together. Besides, I am even worse than my sister. Men's hearts are so unreliable. Before we got married, he cheated on his sister and he also cheated on me. I will not be willing to be fooled by him and eventually become his victim. Now I have awakened. Love is really the devil in the world, and countless men and women have fallen victim to it. So I took the liberty to come to see my sister today, and on the one hand, I beg you to allow me to repent. Because my Meng Lang harmed my sister and harmed himself, on the one hand, I repented of my misunderstanding of impure love and made the sacrifice of my animal desires. Alas, the flow of her heart is enough to wash away the dirt in my soul. Of course I am eternal. Curse mankind, but because of her sincerity. I immediately forgave and cried for the women of the world. Because there has never been a woman who was not teased and insulted by men. If I can overcome the disease, I now have a new hope, but unfortunately this hope is too weak. If I can shake hands with all women in the world and usher in a new era for women, then I will repent of the past and at the same time strive for the future. Oh! Is the dilapidated house worthy of continuous rain? Pieces of paper on the doors and windows were flying, and raindrops quietly came in from there. Although it was still early autumn, I, who was sick and torn apart, suddenly felt cold and raw in my muscles. Especially my empty heart cannot withstand the blows of this ups and downs. However, is there any way to refuse it? Ever since Sister Ji left yesterday afternoon, not a single person has been seen. Well, who would have thought that in this shabby house, there is an almost ghost-like Lan Tian? The stove was knocked over by the big black cat next door at some point, and the medicine jar was tilted to the side, with medicine dregs spilled all over the floor. Wang Ma also has no conscience. I left yesterday morning and still refused to come back. Of course, I still owe her this month's wages, so why can't I let her lose her temper? The universe is not that small to begin with. But apart from this leaky shabby house, where else can I get involved? Oh! Although there is hope of resurgence of the dead ashes, who is willing to brag for me so that it will really resurrect? My heart is racing. My spiritual sea is boiling. But what about the unpredictable destiny and unpredictable society? Who can truly tell me the result? The excitement just now is like an illusory mirror flower. It's like a watery moon in a bubble. He Ren and Wang Yi are two cunning and cruel young men. My whole heart was broken in their hands. Sister Ji bought a lot of white lotus this morning. In the porcelain vase on the small table in front of my bed. The waves of fragrance always excite my mind, but at the same time it also makes me feel confused. There are always periods in life that are like flowers, and then I am down and out. Why don't I have such memories worth cherishing, but I am always inferior to others? My childhood years were too bleak. About 15 years ago, I was only 7 years old, and I was attached to the elbow of my loving mother. I remember, deeply remember, when I get up every morning, my loving mother always puts 2 little buns on my temples. Sometimes I even wear a few violets. But suddenly one day, my bun was changed into a braid, which naturally made me feel novel. But I wondered why my mother didn't comb my hair, but it was Zhang Ma who braided my hair. Naturally, I felt unhappy and got angry. I was crying, and suddenly I saw my father saying to me with a sad face, "Little darling, don't make any noise, Mom is sick." The experience of being sick is in my young mind, and I really don't have any special ability to understand it, but I am also... The crying gradually stopped. Sister Ji walked in sadly in the afternoon. I seemed to have found a treasure, but for some reason, my tears flowed down. When Sister Ji asked me, "Hasn't Mother Wang come yet?" I felt like a wrong child. When the adults reminded me of the reason for my grievances, I burst into tears. Sister Ji was very dissatisfied. She helped me tidy up the messy table and the tea stove and medicine jars lying on the floor, which made me feel like a knife stabbing me in the heart. Alas, I only wish I had listened to her. It would not lead to the current situation of poverty and disease. I repent, I feel ashamed, I don't know how to treat my beloved Sister Ji, in this place where dangers lurk everywhere, and when the day is waning and the journey is hard, she is the only one who extends my nostalgia for the world with her tenderness from time to time. Lantian's Confessions ends here. There is another page at the back with a note from Sister Ji, Why does Lantian have this, Confessions? Where did you get it? I haven't seen it since I came back. Get her message. My soul strings for just those 6 words. I couldn't help but get nervous. I was eager to know the truth about her. Although this booklet could tell me in detail, wouldn't it be too slow under this current situation? So I had to ask Xiaopu first. There you will at least be satisfied with her answer to the origin of the confessions. Her recent news, and even her life's news, are all in it. As for the origin of this booklet, it is simpler. Sister Ji sent it from Beijing. Just watch it quietly. I'll go back now and we'll talk tomorrow. The world situation depends on whether it is warm or cold, and people's reputation is high and low. Sister Ji, I have nothing but regret for you now. Sister Ji looked at me sadly, her moist eyes were full of pity and sympathy. She walked to my bed at this time. Sitting next to me, he sighed deeply. There is no need to mention the past, let's talk about the present now. It seems that Wang Ma will not come today. You are sick and are alone here. Why? So, I will stay with you today. But he Ren is so unpopular. When you had $1,000 in your hand, didn't he come here to pester you every day? Now not even a shadow has disappeared. Sister Ji said angrily, alas! My empty and lonely heart. Who can imagine how regret and disappointment devastate me? Well, the mountain wind roaring with tigers became even more stern, and the deep silence of the night made my hair grow red. I felt so sad that I had to stay up all night again. Why is there so much bad news in the world? Where is the return journey? On the different roads of life, Shalu is also a timid traveler. Although she is now a wife and mother, she still wanders on the wrong road from time to time, quietly asking where is the way back. On this day, she was preparing to invite a guest from afar, and the sky was already hazy. It's no longer a dream. She stared blankly at the lavender tent ceiling, as if the shadows of violet flowers were showing on it. It must have been a spring night 4 years ago. The breeze secretly conveyed the warmth of jasmine, and the crescent moon hung slantly on the pine tips, casting light on the silent river embankment. She once walked arm in arm with Ling Su, wandering among the green bushes. But for Ling Su to go to the country, she said goodbye sadly, and all the beautiful scenery was stained with blood in Li Ren's eyes. Early the next morning, Shalu took a bouquet of violets and went to the station to give Ling Su a gift. Shalu held Ling Su's hand and said, Sister Su, take care of it. See you again in 4 years. I hope you and I are like this smiling spring flower, which is a symbol of hope. At that time, Ling Su accepted this hua. The train has been slowly crawling. It has been 4 years now. Ling Su ignored her words. What should I do if I just keep my abacus secretly? It is not good to get married. It is not good not to get married. There are many wrong paths. Where is the way back? She sighed deeply without realizing it. Life is so complicated. Ling Su felt a little upset when she heard her third sister speaking with enthusiasm. But she still managed to maintain her deep attitude and said calmly, I think there is no such thing as having it all in the world, so if it is more fun to be content with the situation, why bother to be pretentious? Shala walked to the yard and picked a few. A purple lilac is placed in a white porcelain vase. Place it on the round table in the living room. She sat sadly on the sofa by the window, waiting quietly for Ling Su and her third sister. In this quiet and warm air, Sha Lu relived her old dream, and her eyelashes were wet with tears again, like morning dew soaking autumn grass. Sha Lu walked to the dressing table and was about to comb her hair when she suddenly saw that her face in the mirror looked much older and was very different from the small photo hanging on the wall. She couldn't help but be secretly shocked by the passage of time. She stuck the comb in her head and fell into a daze. What's going on? Marriage, having children, being a mother, all the ordinary things have come to an end, and career aspirations have become traces in the history of life. Women, this turns out to be a woman's bounden duty. But who can firmly believe that women are such simple animals? Organize household chores. Raise children, oh. The trivial things of waiting on your husband are enough to wear you down. Social undertakings, activities that occur due to personal will, I have to not mention them. Alas, I am so ashamed of my return guests from afar today. Just in time to display her lifelong ambition. She is like the shining Bachin, who can shine a ray of light into the dark night scene and guide the way for all those who are lost. Oh, how great and meaningful this is. Alas, I am so timid, why should I get married? My sister has always been celibate, and her knowledge is much better than mine. Now I can only watch others flying hard, but I am already a laggard of the times. The knowledge I have sought for more than 10 years now has no choice but to be given to Bachin and buried deep under the sea. The flower of hope withers with the passing light. You will forever become an afterimage in my spiritual palace. Sha Lu couldn't resolve the secret of this sorrow no matter what, so she couldn't help wiping her tears quietly. Suddenly she heard her husband's cough in the front room and knew that he had woken up. He hurriedly called Zhang Ma to take the soup and prepare snacks. He ran over to get a replacement jacket for him. At the same time, he ordered the coachman to have breakfast and pull the coach out to prepare. After being confused for a while, I wanted to wash my face. The little boy on the bed woke up again. I quickly put down the towel, picked up the baby, and changed the diaper. The clock on the wall has struck 9 times. The guests are coming, and everything is not ready yet. Shala can't take care of it, and is busy like a revolving lantern. Although Sha Lu heard this, he didn't dare to believe it. He smiled and said, "Third sister, don't look down on your aunt too much." Sha Lu was thinking about the past and unconsciously looked around him. Suddenly I saw the 10-month-old child sleeping next to me, with crimson cheeks, long black eyelashes hanging down, and a petite and round face. I couldn't help but kiss him gently on the forehead. He sat up gently again. I put on a flannel jacket and opened the mosquito net, and the golden sunlight came in through the glass window. Hearing the light footsteps downstairs, I thought it must be Zhang Ma who was getting up. So I walked to the escalator and called out, "Zhang Ma," softly. A pockmarked and slightly plump woman came up with a lead jug. Shala buttoned up his clothes and stretched his chin and said, "We have guests coming at 10 o'clock today. The floors in the house and the living room need to be mopped. I'll go buy some side dishes later. Are fu up? Ask him to go to the pier to pick up the third lady after breakfast. There is another guest who came on the same ship as the third lady. They arrived in Shanghai at 9 o'clock. Go early so you don't miss out." Zhang Ma put down the lead pot and agreed to go. "I believe you understand everything better than I do, so I know your words are still meant to comfort me. After all, you are also swallowing your tears for me, so why don't we all just have a good cry? I'll tell you honestly, girls' hearts." Completely enchanted by the ideal garden. Rose is a symbol of love. Under the clear curtain of moonlight, lovers sit side by side in the flowers. Everything transcends the human world, blending two souls into one. Although the world is as silent as death, he and she are closely connected. It is harmonious. Alas, under this kind of temptation, who can believe the truth in their bones? That's simply not the case. To put it more bluntly, many women also marry their husbands for the sake of food and happiness. But a woman who dreams of an ideal garden ends up in such. Looking at the messy state affairs, don't you have any intention of working hard? Sister Ling, you know how much Xifan's words made me excited. But my fault was that I actually said some words that deceived others and myself. I do want everything now. It's okay to just raise this little kid. When you are happy, write something, read something, and have fun. I am a small person, and I have long looked down upon all vanity." After hearing this, Zhifan was extremely unhappy. She looked at me with disappointed eyes and said, "You can just settle for this." "But I also have my own thoughts, General. Mount up and go your separate ways." She probably thought I was a worthless loser, so she left without even sitting down. I felt very sorry at the time, and when I thought about it again, I realized that I really had no sense of responsibility. Oh, Sister Ling. Being timid, I can only regret why I got married. Sha Lu said very sadly and kept wiping her tears with a scarf. But the third sister didn't believe that everything could be fulfilled without getting married. She turned back to look at Sha Lu and Ling Su and said, "Let's talk about the unmarried aunt again." Soon the electric bell on the door rang loudly. Zhang Ma opened the door with a "yeah" sound. A young and beautiful woman walked in with a smile and a small leather bag in her hand. Sha Lu hurriedly stepped forward and held her hand. He said with a mixture of joy and sadness, "You are back. Where is Ling Su?" "Here you are." "Sha Lu. How are you? I didn't expect to see you here. I heard that you are." Ian held Shala's hand and said sincerely, "In this long journey of life with many twists and turns, you finally found your destination. Don't think about those unsatisfactory things." Shala's steaming tears could not be swallowed reluctantly. She choked and sighed, "Sister Ling. Why do you comfort me with such insincere words? Destination. I really don't dare to think deeply about it. Like water in a pothole, it will never move. It can be considered to have a destination, but it is too boring and shallow. If I only seek such a destination is the true meaning of life. So what else is wrong with the world?" The third sister argued, listen to me telling her a story. Why is that? Elder sister. Is there anything unhappy that happened to you? Sha Lu shook his head and sighed. Sister, how dare I ask for what I want? Is there anything I want in the world? As long as there is no excessive conflict between facts and ideas, you are extremely lucky. Sha Lu's sad and painful tone made everyone feel at a loss. Lingsu still held Sha Lu's hand tightly and comforted her. Sha Lu, don't be too formal. What's the point of feeling uncomfortable? The so-called truth in the world is not absolute. Greatness and immortality are too one-sided after all. How can it solve the whole life? Life turns out to be not that simple. Who can take care of everything? If the heaven and the earth were one and complete, then Nuwa wouldn't have to refine stones to mend the sky. It's too hard for you to think about. Sister Ling's words are really good. No matter where you go, you will be responsible for everything. As long as you have worked hard and left, you can shirk responsibility for everything. My sister always likes to dig into the corners, getting more and more narrow. I'm not afraid of your jokes. Stubbornness is the cause of suffering in life. There is no need to talk about others. Let's take a look at our aunt. Sister Ling and sister, you should all have the impression of your aunt in your mind, right? But it was only at this time that the lilacs were in their adolescence, and their fragrance and color were in full bloom. However, the years and the goddess of spring who refused to stop for others were gone in the blink of an eye, and everything changed. If by the time the cuckoos are singing in bright red and the orioles are falling in love with the broken branches, spring has already come to an end. How sad and neglected it is to only miss the youth of the past. My aunt has become much more haggard recently. According to my observation, she may be regretting not getting married in time. My aunt stood sadly under the moonlight, maybe weeping quietly. But I couldn't bear to stare at her. When I was on the way back, my aunt said to me again, "Really, I feel so alone in every way now." Sister Ling, you can tell what my aunt meant by what she said. Sha Lu listened quietly, and finally smiled and said, "Then it's better to get married. How's aunt doing lately?" I heard a few days ago that she suffered from severe insomnia. I wonder if she has recovered recently. Third sister, you came from your hometown. Have you heard any news about her? Elder sister. Of course you admire your aunt's hard work. Some people say that only someone like her can be considered great. But unfortunately, some people also sneered at her and said she was boring and pushy. When she got angry, my aunt would often bite her lip and say, "Discordant humans are always cruel." But no one paid attention to her. The barrier stood between people like an iron wall and a copper wall. This year's Mid-Autumn Festival is full of moonlight. She and I lived together in the ancient mountains. It was a beautiful moonlight night all over the mountains, and the waterfalls and streams were shining with silver light. After dinner, we walked slowly along the stone road and earth steps to the North Peak, where there were several smooth rocks lined up like sparse stars. We picked a triangular piece. Sit side by side. Suddenly, bursts of faint fragrance came quietly from the breeze. In the bright moonlight, we saw many vines climbing on the rocks, which looked like coral-colored balls. We couldn't identify what they were. It's gurgling. We sat facing each other in silence, and soon we heard melodious singing coming from the chapel on the opposite mountain. My aunt stood up excitedly and said, "It's wonderful, right here and now. If you die at this moment, wouldn't it?" When that day comes, many people may sigh, it's a pity that she died too early. If she didn't die, her future achievements would be immeasurable. I seemed to get a hint after hearing this, and saw the red. Why are you saying such short-tempered words? Your future is bright and everyone wants you to report the news of your success to them. My aunt touched my shoulder and sighed, "Third sister, you know that just because there are so many people hoping for me, I will die early. Only death can gain the greatest sympathy." Remembering that I campaigned for the women's movement in Beijing 2 years ago, it only made me feel a little bit more ashamed. Some people actually gave me a mean term for a would-be politician. Later, because of the movement to amend the Constitution, we received considerable assistance. I don't even know how much ridicule I suffered. In the end, many rumors were spread, including that I was engaged to someone. The most cruel one was that someone said that I was going to be someone's concubine, and they not only insulted me. When they are drunk with wine, from the corners of their mouths, they often reveal frivolous smiles, and then they must come to a conclusion: these women are using the women's movement as a sign to gain limelight. How do you want me to suffer? But our comrades are not up to expectations. When Lan and Meizhen started a love triangle again and made jokes all day long, I couldn't help but feel resentful and finally discouraged. Soon the political situation changed drastically, Congress was dissolved, and our Women's League also disintegrated. Living in Beijing is really boring. What's more, an uninteresting incident kept me busy for a whole day, which made me determined to leave Beijing. I thought that after I came back, I would try to unite my comrades to try again, but who knew that the environment here would be even worse? Well, it's better to end it early. Sha Lu and the third sister were silent, each thinking their own thoughts. There was deathly silence all around, except for the oriole at the top of the tree, whirling around and playing with her beady throat. The autumn wind and autumn rain are so sad. Ling Feng was riding a small boat alone in the bright morning sun. The light mist is like light smoke, covering the lake and mountains, and the dense Shuyin clouds lazily spread in the valley. In the distance, the greenery is faint, and the purple mist is long. At this time, the mood is very unrestrained. The boatman rocked his oars and sang a tune in a low. Ling Feng stood at the bow of the boat and looked around. He saw a patch of red polygonum and a few green reeds, and his eyes were filled with autumn colors. She ordered the boatman to bring the boat to the shore, and then quietly moved forward on the fun. It was an easy year in autumn wind, she sighed, leaning on the lonely tree. Many tourists were singing Long Tu Water's song on the opposite peak. The tone was sad. She was standing there in danger. Suddenly she saw a lonely grave in the woods. The light shines in the eyes, and the mournful cicadas on the treetops scream, as if complaining of the sorrow that is about to suffocate, and the weavers are singing and weeping in the grass. Amidst the cold autumn colors and sounds, she suddenly remembered that she had murmured, "Autumn wind and autumn rain are so sad," here 5 years ago. The autumn rain has been continuous these days, and the autumn wind is howling. Qiu Jin was imprisoned in a heavy prison, her hands and feet were shackled, and she was tortured day and night. She was in great pain, and her face was already pale and colorless. After she finished reading this poem, she closed her eyes tightly. Sometimes she thought about the horror of death, but in the end she smiled proudly. If her sacrifice could help the revolution succeed, death would be heavier than Mount Tai, and there is nothing better than this. a better way to die? She thought of this. Not only are you not afraid of death, but you are also looking forward to the day of death. The bright red blood of your heart is like the nectar in the bottle of Bodhisattva. It can save all living beings. The dead body lying beside the guillotine is a long-lasting memory, great and meaningful. These heroes were all lying on the execution ground in an instant. Their souls have left this dusty world. Qiu Jin's body was buried in Pujiu Temple by her uncle. A few days later, a letter suddenly arrived from the post office. It was Qiu Jin's handwriting. Ling Feng's father hurriedly read. My aunts and uncles came forward and said he escaped from his house that night. It was windy and rainy, and he was running hastily on the muddy road. He planned to take the evening train north to escape. Unexpectedly, the police station was densely packed, and he was trapped. As soon as he arrived at the station, he was arrested. Although he was not arrested, after announcing a crime, it can be predicted that the future will be unlucky. But my nephew has been alone since he was a child. The destiny is unlucky, and the country is troubled and devastated. The land of Shenzhou is in danger of sinking, so why not waste your life? The decision to pledge one's life to the country's nephew was made early. Although the sword is stronger than the axe, the same intention remains unchanged. After thinking about the emperor's beautiful body, and then destroying it at the hands of the disgusting Manchus, who cannot burst into tears in order to recover from the snow? The nephew was not stupid, but admired the noble character of Jade Mulan, and thought that he could serve the country. Unfortunately, he ended up in the net of the law. This is also his fate. But if we hope that the What a shame! Say goodbye. Say goodbye. Lin Shu was in a state of despair and confusion. Congratulations to Fuan. These patriots who died had to feel proud, and people from all over came to pay homage to the 72 martyrs of Huanghuagang. Qiu Jinyu was one of the hard-working people. Her uncle asked for many favors and wanted to see her, but he could only look at her through the gap in the iron bars, and the time could not exceed 5 minutes. Qiu Jin's face had turned green and yellow at this time, and her 2 eyeballs were protruding, which was very scary. Her uncle reached through the bars. Holding her ironclad hand, I couldn't help but shed tears. Qiu Jin stared at his face, the blood in her eyes flowing down her cheeks. She smiled miserably and shook her head. She said sternly, "Uncle, take care." Her uncle was stamping his feet outside and crying bitterly, but the 5 minutes were up and the jailer took him out. After the news came, my mother cried all night. The next day, my father went around to ask people to plead for mercy. However, the court was most jealous of party members at this time, and even a prostitute would not forgive him lightly. 7 days later, he would be taken to the execution ground. My father did not dare to tell my mother this shocking news. He only said that he had asked someone to intercede for mercy or that he might be saved. "What's up?" Lao Wang replied to his mother as he had said before. As if he had already expected what was going on, he pushed up the pillow and said, "Go next door and call the young master of the Li family. If something happens in the middle of the night, it will be fine." Lao Wang hurriedly invited the young master of the Li family. His mother asked him to negotiate with the 2 detectives, and this terrible trouble was avoided. She couldn't help but walk towards the lonely grave. I saw a broken tablet standing next to the tomb, covered with moss and blurred writing. I picked up a tile from the ground and scraped away the moss to reveal the words. The tomb of the female martyr Qiu Jin. At 10 o'clock the next day, the road was busy with people, and the guards passed by in groups. Soldiers with guns and ammunition also passed by in groups. Each one was majestic and filled with murderous intent. What does it feel like to kill someone? Only God knows this. Several prison cars, carrying many young heroes and patriots, headed for the execution ground. In the last car was the heroine Qiu Jin. When Ling Feng saw it from a distance, he couldn't help but feel like his heart was cut by a knife, and he sobbed. People watching the excitement on the street. Regarding these patriots who died for the country, some said incomprehensibly, "Are these revolutionaries?" Some seemed to understand the meaning of this matter, and just shook their heads and sighed slightly, poor. Finally the heroine in the prison van appeared, surprising the people on the street. Women are also revolutionaries. This is unprecedented news. Ling Feng secretly told his mother what had happened just now, and her mother couldn't help but sigh. Your aunt and uncle died early, leaving her alone as an orphan. She is also born with a proud temperament and likes to fight against injustice. Now he has become a revolutionary party, alas. What if something unexpected happens? As I spoke, I couldn't help but shed tears. Zhong Lingfeng's father came back after 12 o'clock. Hearing the news, I was worried all night. I wonder where she was hiding in the storm last night. The cloud curtain of fear has been covering Ling Feng's family. Ling Feng thought of this and looked at the scenery before his eyes. He saw the grass was scattered and the poplars were rustling. Looking up to the end of the world, soldiers were at war for years. The country was changing day by day. Where would this buried heroic soul live? Where is the ideal republic? She couldn't help but feel a surge of sadness. She knocked on the broken stone of the stele and chanted loudly, "The ancient road in the maple forest, the smoke and grass."